Hello, everybody. This is Ryan from I Try Running Programs, and we are now through week 11 of the Hal Higdon Advanced 1 Marathon Training Program. And this is a week that's actually relatively higher in mileage. You can see two easy 10-mile runs in this week, a 20-mile long run, and then a 45-minute tempo run, bookended by a couple of easier runs during the beginning of the week as well. So this week was a little bit more unique in that in the prior week, I had failed a long run on Saturday evening, and so took that mileage and decided to use that mileage to replace both the 4 and the 5-mile runs. I ended up only running 4 times this week. It still ended up not being a majorly long week in terms of distance because of that, and also because of another failed long run later in the week. So a little foreshadowing, if you will. Now, the first run was a little bit longer than probably written up by Hal. He wanted a 10-mile run. I ended up doing 11 just so I could get back to my house in enough time to get ready for work. Kept it pretty consistent, low 8s to mid 8s, couple of miles in the low 6s near the end of the run because I was trying to get home a little bit quickly. But relatively a good, comfortable, easy pace for me. Most of my easy paces you'll see in my videos, I try to keep it somewhere between 8 minutes to 9 minutes per mile. It just really depends on the day and the distance. Sometimes the shorter, easy runs, I'll run a little bit faster because I'll start them a little bit later in the morning. But this was good. As you can see by the pacing, it stayed relatively flat and then picked up a little bit after about mile 8. It got consistently a little bit faster. Any major dips would have just been stoplights where I was stopping to avoid traffic, things of that nature. But overall, a very good middle distance, easy run. Was very, very happy with it. Now, the second major run of the week after a day off was a 45-minute tempo run. This was a relatively good effort. The only downside during it was I didn't feel 100% in my left Achilles, which had been an issue I had been dealing with for a couple weeks prior, which is now completely healed with just a few days of icing. It's completely gone, but it did ultimately affect, I think, how fast I could run this run. I was hoping to do this at roughly about 10K pace during the tempo sections, which is realistically what I did. So for the first mile and a little bit past that first mile, I was running very comfortably in about the 8:30 pace as just a warm up. And as I say, every time I run a tempo run, the minute I hit Natividad Road, that is when I pick it up because I'm crossing through a stoplight. So after I've crossed through the crosswalk, that's when I pick it up, kind of turn on the engines a little bit and get going. And so I was able to run 3 miles consistently in the 6:30 to 6:40-ish range. And then this 6th mile was a good chunk of it was at pace. And then you can see it slows down a little bit near the end because I was waiting to cross a stoplight. And that's when I kind of re-entered into the cool down phase of the run. So you can see in here was able to keep all of the tempo work somewhere between the high 5s. A couple times it dipped down maybe to about the 5:25, 30 pace. But for the most part, keeping it in the high 5s, somewhere between the low 6s, sometimes or high 6s, excuse me, and sometimes very, very low 7s if I was going uphill. So a very, very consistent tempo run. It ended up being a 5K PR, which I thought was pretty interesting. My previous 5K PR was on a self-made course. I was on a business trip and found a net 500-foot downhill that I could basically run for 3 miles straight to try to 5K PR. So being able to do this on a more undulating course, this is actually a great effort overall to see that. And, you know, like I said before in my previous videos, I think it's just a matter of time before I go into the mid to maybe even low 19s during this training block, just because of how much speed work is included in this overall training plan. In short, so much of my shorter distance race lengths and my medium distance length runs, like the half marathon, I've seen PR after PR after PR because of all of the speed work that's in this program that's also bookended by a lot of easy running. So overall, for a tempo effort, was very, very happy with it. The only thing that would have made me probably a little bit faster during this is if I felt like my Achilles tendon wasn't bothering me. So luckily that injury has gone away. It was just overuse. That's gone, so that should not be an issue for future runs. Now came the weekend where I was supposed to kind of back end all of my running with 10 miles easy on Saturday and then 20 miles for my long run on Sunday. So the easy run was run very late at night on Saturday. I had a kind of a full day with my wife and my daughter, taking my daughter to Disney on Ice, and then went out to to dinner with my in-laws. So had to run the run pretty late. Was stuffed full of food and goodies from the show. So just was really just trying to get miles under feet here. I was not worried about how quickly I ran the run. Didn't feel very particularly good during the entirety of the run, but was able to get in all 10 miles roughly at about a 9-minute average pace. And you can see pretty slow mileage overall, anywhere from the mid 8s to the low 9s. Kind of the pacing is all over the map. Not necessarily a great run, but a run nonetheless that was completed effectively according to the training plan. Now, the last run of the week was supposed to be a 20-mile long run, and it just wasn't going to happen. This Sunday in Salinas, it was pretty cold. It was slated to rain, never did rain much. There was a little bit of sprinkling. But overall, just my legs were still tired from the night before. It was, I had finished my run by about 10:30 p.m. Saturday night, and then I was out running again at 6:30 the next morning. And that just wasn't a big enough break between runs for that distance to really keep going. So by about mile 8, I just kind of knew this was going to be something that I could complete and be really miserable if I completed it, or I could kind of live to fight another day. So I decided to cut the long run and just call it 8 miles. I'm not thrilled about that naturally because there's only so many 20-mile long runs, and I think those are really critical to know kind of how your training is going, times you could realistically eye for the marathon. So the upcoming 20-mile long run in a couple of weeks is something that I'm really going to make sure that I'm well rested for. I'm ready for it. I might even move my day off in the week to prepare for it. This gave me some good insight into probably how I want to structure my week. When you look at Hal's plan, he basically has you do 3 easy runs, then some form of speed work, a rest day, and then either an easy run or another speed work day, followed by a long run. I think that could work, but I think it also on days where there's not maybe as much work with the 20-mile long run in it, I may move the first workout to earlier in the week and then move either a very short, easy run before the long run, or even move my rest day before the long run, because that way I feel like my legs will be a little bit fresher and I'll be able to put the effort in. Because if you end up looking at this run, it doesn't look bad on paper, but this time and pacing chart doesn't really show the underlying issues of what I was feeling on that run. Now, the only other thing that I would add kind of that's popped up this week is while my Achilles feels good, I have another overuse issue where I'm having a little bit of plantar fasciitis in both feet. And that's a classic sign for me of overuse, where I've probably been running just a touch too much. So I'm going to see how it feels. If the worst comes to worst, I'll take some time off and, just try to, have a really good 2 weeks of training after that. But I don't feel like it's necessary to take time off yet, but we'll see how that goes. I have to gauge and really listen to my body. I really think this week where I accidentally kind of screwed up my long run and then decided to run more mileage the next day and end up running 63 miles, this was way higher than any other previous week that I ran. And it also had, more time on feet and more elevation gain than the previous week. And that might have not been a great thing to do so deep into training already. So I think there's a little bit of recovery that might need to take place. But by and large, so far this week is going well, and we'll kind of see how that goes. But if I do end up taking some time off, I'll notate that in my future videos. But for now, I'm going to continue following the training and we'll just see how it goes. So thanks for watching this week's update, and we'll see you in week 12.